Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. He found the photos at 1 in the morning on a phone that wasn't his. Pictures she had never sent to him. Not once in the entire marriage. The kind of pictures that only get taken for someone whose name you don't say out loud. This story has two sides. You'll hear his first, the husband who pieced it together alone in the dark while his wife slept beside him. Then you'll hear hers, the woman who carried it for years and almost took it to the grave. Then we'll bring in the people who weighed in on Reddit. By the end, you decide. First side, his story. Let me tell you how I lost 2 years of my life. We got married in 2019. Bought the house in 2021. Had our son in late 2022. From the outside, it looked like every step a couple is supposed to take. Hand in hand. Building something. I thought I was building something. Then early 2023, something shifted. I can't even tell you exactly what. The arguments felt different. There was this resentment coming off her that didn't match anything I'd done. She was still sweet on the surface. Still loyal seeming. Still sensitive. But my gut started talking, and my gut wouldn't shut up. I'm not the kind of guy who snoops. I'd never had a reason. But one night I picked up her phone. What I found made my hands go cold. Explicit pictures. Videos. The kind of content she had never once sent me in our entire relationship. Not when we were dating. Not when we were engaged. Not on our honeymoon. Not on a single anniversary. Which meant exactly one thing. They weren't for me. Then I dug deeper and found the WhatsApp screenshots. Not chats with the men. Those she had cleaned up. The screenshots existed because she had been sharing the affairs with a friend. We'll call this friend Emma. Emma wasn't some childhood best friend. She was just a woman my wife knew. A woman who was also cheating on her own partner. And the two of them had turned it into a hobby. They were swapping stories. Comparing notes. Like book club, but for betrayal. The timeline ran from late 2019 to early 2022. Read that again. Late 2019. We got married in 2019. So she made it, at most, a year of marriage before this started. And it kept going through buying our house. Through trying for a child. Through the pregnancy. 3 years. I did a paternity test in secret. The boy is mine. That part, at least, I got to keep. The next 2 weeks were the worst weeks of my life. I didn't sleep. I lay next to her in our bed, and I felt my whole nervous system on fire. Fight or flight. All night. Every night. For 14 straight nights. I had to keep my face still in the morning. I had to make her coffee. I had to hand her our son. I was pretending to be a husband while I figured out how to stop being one. Here's what really broke me. It wasn't the men. It wasn't even the pictures. It was the fact that she walked beside me through every milestone of our life knowing there was a bomb buried under the floor. We bought a house. She knew. We had a baby. She knew. We held hands at every doctor's appointment. She knew. And she let me build all of it. She let me believe in all of it. If the situation were reversed, I couldn't keep that secret for 3 days. She kept it for 3 years. And the only reason it ever came out is because I went looking. If I hadn't, she would have died with it inside her. She was prepared to take it to the grave. That's not love. That's somebody using you as furniture. I confronted her. And then came what every betrayed spouse on the internet has a name for. Trickle truth. She admitted only what I had proof of. Every new piece of evidence I produced got me a new piece of admission. Nothing voluntary. Nothing brave. Just damage control. I should have left that day. I almost did. But our son was 6 months old. 6 months. And the thought of not seeing him every morning, not being the one who picked him up when he cried, not being there for the first words and the first steps, that thought broke me harder than the affair did. So I stayed. I told myself I'd give it time. I told myself maybe she could become someone different. Maybe the dust would settle and there would be something left to build on. For 2 years I was a ghost in my own house. On autopilot. Functioning. Detached. Waking up. Going through the motions. Raising my son. Sleeping next to a woman I no longer knew. And here's the thing about reconciliation. It only works if the other person actually changes. She didn't change. She performed change. There's a difference. She'd say all the right words. I'm sorry. I'm heartbroken. It was so long ago. I'm a different person now. Those phrases were supposed to comfort me, and they made my blood pressure spike every time. So long ago. As if time alone is repentance. A different person now. Said by the same person who, earlier this year, met up with Emma in secret. The friend I'd asked her to cut off on day 1. The friend who was the witness and cheerleader to the whole thing. She didn't ask me if it was okay. She knew I'd say no. So she just did it and lied about it. Same playbook, different year. That's when I saw it clearly. The cheating wasn't a chapter. The cheating was a symptom. The disease was the lying. The secret keeping. The ability to look me in the eye while running a parallel life underneath. That capacity doesn't get fixed in 2 years of saying sorry. Add in the financial wreckage she caused over the years. Piles of debt I was working overtime to pay down. While she was off doing what she was doing. I was the workhorse. She was the tourist. For weeks ago, I sat her down and told her we were done. I'm not scared of co-parenting anymore. I used to think a broken home was the worst thing I could do to my son. Now I understand that staying inside a tense, untrustworthy marriage is the broken home. The bubble I create for him will be calm. It will be safe. It will be honest. Because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. I carried the heartbreak for 2 years so my son wouldn't have to carry the consequences. I'm done carrying it. That's how I see it. That's how I lived it. But she would tell you something else. She'd have to. So let's hear her. Second side, her story.
I know how I look from the outside. I know what the screenshots say about me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're wrong. I'm going to tell you what nobody else can tell you. What it looked like from inside my own head. Because I've had a lot of time to think about it now. And the version of me he found on that phone, I don't fully recognize her either. But she was real. She was me. I can't pretend otherwise. When we got married, I loved him. Let me say that first. I want to say it before anything else because I know the rest of this is going to make people doubt it, and I don't expect them to believe me. But I did. The first year of marriage was harder than I told him. I felt small in a way I couldn't explain. Like the wedding had been the finish line and now there was nothing to look forward to, and I was just supposed to be a wife forever. I didn't know how to say that. I didn't even know that's what I was feeling at the time. I just knew I was restless and I hated myself for being restless, and I couldn't tell him because what kind of wife says that out loud 9 months in? Then I met Emma. Emma was already doing it. She made it sound like a secret room you could step into and step back out of. Like none of it counted. She'd talk about it like it was funny, like it was a hobby, and the way she talked about it made it feel survivable. She made it feel like something a person could do without becoming a monster. That's the lie I let her sell me. Because I wanted to be sold. The first time wasn't a decision. That's not me dodging blame, it's me trying to be honest. There was no moment where I stood in front of a mirror and chose this. There was a slow drift. A message I shouldn't have answered. A reply I shouldn't have sent. A meeting I shouldn't have shown up for. And then I was already on the other side of the line and I couldn't figure out how to get back. I want you to understand something, and I'm not saying this to be forgiven. I'm saying it because it's the truth. Every time I came home I loved him more, not less. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like the kind of thing a cheater says to make herself feel better. But it's what happened. I'd see him on the couch. I'd see him making dinner. I'd see him being good. And I'd feel sick with how good he was. And then I'd go upstairs and shower and I wouldn't let myself think about it. That's how it kept going. By not thinking about it. When we bought the house, I told myself I was done. I meant it. I lasted a few months. When I got pregnant, I told myself I was done. I lasted longer that time. Each time I climbed out, I climbed back in. Not because I wanted the men. The men were nothing. The men were honestly nothing. It was the room. The secret room Emma showed me. That feeling that part of my life was mine and only mine and nobody could touch it. That's the part I'm most ashamed of. Not the affairs. The wanting of a private room. When I finally stopped in early 2022, it wasn't because I'd grown. It was because I was exhausted. And because the baby was coming. And because I knew if I didn't stop now, I would never stop. And I'd be doing this with a child in the next room. That image woke something up in me. Not all the way. Just enough. I should have told him then. I know that. Every honest part of me knew it. I rehearsed the sentence in the bathroom while I was pregnant. I'd rehearse it and then I'd put it down. And then a week would pass. And then a month. And then he was holding our son and looking at me like I was the mother of his child. And I told myself I am the mother of his child, that's all I am now, the rest of it doesn't have to exist. I really believed I could bury it. I really believed time would do the work for me. Then he found out. I saw his face that morning and I knew. I knew before he said a word. And the first thing I did, the very first thing, was lie. I lied while my hands were shaking. I lied because lying had become the wallpaper of my life and I couldn't stop on command. He kept producing more evidence and I kept admitting only what he held in his hand. I watched myself do it and I hated myself doing it and I did it anyway. That's the part one haven't been able to undo. The lying didn't end with the affairs. The lying was the deeper thing. Then there's Emma. I know how the Emma meeting looks. I know exactly how it looks. And I'm not going to tell you it was innocent because I went into it knowing he would say no and I didn't ask. That is the textbook definition of doing it again. Different content. Same shape. I told myself she was the only person who knew the whole me. I told myself I needed someone who knew. I told myself a lot of things. None of them were a reason. They were all excuses dressed up as reasons. When he sat me down 4 weeks ago and told me he was done, I didn't fight. I cried, but I didn't fight. Because somewhere underneath the sadness there was a quieter thing. And the quieter thing was relief. Relief that I wouldn't have to keep performing repentance for the rest of my life. Relief that he was finally going to get out from under me. I don't get to keep him. I understand that now. I think part of me has understood it for years and was just hoping nobody would say it out loud. The only thing I want is to be a real mother to our son. Not the woman I've been. A different one. And I don't know yet if I can become her. I haven't earned the right to promise it. That's all I have.
Reddit court. Now we hand the floor to the people who read this story online. For voices weighed in. For different angles. For different temperatures. Here's what they said. The first commenter doesn't try to argue him into anything. They tell him they're sorry. They tell him the worst part is already behind him, because the decision is already made. From here, it's just time. It will hurt, and then it will hurt less. And one day he'll notice he hasn't thought about it in a week. That's the whole comment, and it lands because it doesn't try to do too much. It's the voice of someone who has watched another person climb out of this same hole and knows what the climb looks like. This commenter draws the line nobody else draws. They point out that the meeting with Emma earlier this year wasn't a slip. It was the same behavior, in the same shape, just wearing different clothes. Back then she lied with her affairs. This year she lied with a coffee. The mechanism is identical. Tell him what he wants to hear, do what she wants to do, hide it, hope he doesn't find out. Same woman, same operating system. The fact that the targets changed doesn't mean she did. That comment is the one I'd want him to read twice. This one reframes the entire situation. The wife didn't change into a cheater. She always had this in her. He just hadn't seen it yet. The discovery wasn't the moment she became someone else. It was the moment he finally saw who he had been with the whole time. And then this commenter pivots and gives him real credit, which most internet strangers don't bother to do. They tell him it's never too late to correct a wrong. They tell him he's making good, solid choices. They tell him he got there, even if it took longer than it should have. That's a comment with both a knife and a hand on the shoulder. The fourth commenter is the cold one. No analysis. No sympathy for the wife. They drop one sentence that the other three wouldn't say out loud. They say she had the kid to lock him down. That's a heavy accusation, and we should sit with it for a second. We don't have the evidence to know if it's true, but we have the timeline. The affairs ran from 2019 to early 2022. The pregnancy was in 2022. The baby was born late 2022. She stopped cheating exactly when the baby was on the way. That's either a coincidence, or it's a woman who saw a finish line and bolted for it. This commenter has decided which one it is. Then they tell him to make his home a happy one, and to never tolerate this kind of disrespect again. End of statement. No follow-up. No softening. Here's what these four voices have in common. Not one of them is on her side. Not one of them suggests reconciliation. Not one of them says he's overreacting or that 2 years on autopilot was somehow worth the try. They range from gentle to surgical to cold, but they all point the same direction. Out the door. That kind of unanimity is rare. Internet comment sections usually fracture into camps. This one didn't, which is why we should pause and add the take that didn't show up. There's a perspective these four comments didn't include, and it probably should have been there. Some readers, especially people who have been the cheater rather than the cheated on, would push back gently. They'd say 2 years of post-discovery reconciliation isn't nothing. They'd say she did stop the affairs in early 2022 before she was caught, which is unusual for cheaters. They'd say she's been raising their child alongside him for 3 years, and that has to count for something. They'd say what looks like cold performance from the outside might be a real attempt at change that just isn't enough. That perspective doesn't win this story. The Emma meeting kills it, but it deserves to be in the room. Because real life is rarely a clean verdict, and the fact that the Reddit jury was unanimous doesn't mean the question itself was simple. Final verdict. So here it is. For weeks ago, he sat her down and ended it. He says he's not scared of co-parenting anymore. He says he'd rather his son grow up between two calm bubbles than inside one tense one. He says he carried the heartbreak so the kid wouldn't have to. Now you tell us, did he wait too long? Or did he wait exactly long enough to be sure? Did the 2 years of attempted reconciliation make him weaker? Or are they the reason he can walk away now without doubting himself? Was she ever capable of change? Or was the Emma meeting the proof that some patterns don't break, they just go quiet for a while? And the harder one, if you found what he found, in your own house, in your own marriage, 6 months after your child was born, what would you do? Would you confront in week 1? Or would you sit with it and try to think? Would you stay for the kid? Or would you leave for the kid? Be honest with yourself before you answer. Drop your verdict in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've been on either side of something like this, the side that found out or the side that hid, tell us. Your voice might be the one someone needs to hear tonight. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.